I get asked all the time how I got into sales and why I do it as well. I just thought I'd make a quick video and share a bit about my story. And this is even just for myself. So I remember where I was at 23 years old in Tirana in Albania, working remotely right now. And look, I hope there's someone out there that watches this and gets a bit of value from it potentially as well. Could be good. I mean, if not, it's not the end of the world. So look, well, what did my life look like before I got into sales? I was at uni studying a double degree in finance and marketing, and working these sort of part-time casual roles where we all earned the same money, right? We all get paid the simple hourly rate that everyone did growing up in Australia. And that wasn't really for me. I found that if you work harder, you don't get compensated for it in those roles. And I learned at a younger age where I was more just, I value performance-based pay. That's the bottom line, right? I always felt like I wanted more and I wanted to do more, earn more. And I was always working hard in these roles as well, but never really getting compensated for the effort you put in. And so I thought, rather than just working these jobs, why don't I find something that maybe I can make more in, that with more effort and more hard work that I put in. That opened my mind up to potentially real estate, insurance sales, all these kinds of things. And at the end of the day, you kind of just realize, okay, it's sales, right? Sales is the way that if you sell something, you get a percent of that, and that gives you a commission. And, the more you sell, the more you'll make, right? Now, kind of how I found it. So in my second year of university, one of my friends and I, we were just like looking online and different ways to make money as kind of everyone does these days, and looking at, drop shipping and all these sorts of things. We came across sales, right? As a skill, not even like as high ticket sales or anything like that. It was more just cool. Like, there's a cool industry. Like, why don't we look into it more? And then, so essentially what happened was he found a role in high ticket sales, and I looked at him and I was like, how's this going to work, bro? You're making commission only. You're not making any money. You're putting all these hours in. Is it going to work? Like, I was doubtful at first as well. And then I was like, you know what? Let me bite the bullet as well. Let me find myself a role. I found one in a property investment firm in Australia, and same thing, right? Commission only, working for myself essentially, with all these terrible leads to start with that I thought were terrible, with the Glengarry leads is what they called them. And then you essentially start, and you take that leap of faith, and my expectations where I was going to start, close a bunch of deals and make a bunch of money. And in reality, I mean, that was not the case, right? It took like my first month before I started to see some consistent money. My first week, I made nothing. It was like a 40, 50-hour week of work. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember thinking every day I went to work, to that office, I was like, what am I doing? I have, spent more on my lunch today than I have earning money, right? But in reality, you let it click, and over time you start to earn more and more, and it really compounds and works out in the end. I think the hardest parts for me, like getting started, were more, learning how to communicate better. So slowing down the way I speak and the way I articulate myself. That rejection therapy that everyone goes through was a hard one. Feeling like I sucked at sales all the time as well. Just like, the self-doubt that I feel everyone goes through at the start, where you're just like, oh, is this even me? Is this worth it? Am I, the right person for this? Do I fit sales? Does sales fit for me? Especially because I was still at uni, obviously studying finance. So I had that, two process where I was like, okay, do I work in finance? Do I pursue sales? Do I do both? Like, how do I do that, right? So I mean, that was kind of the things that I found hard. And then what kept me going was just like, I didn't want to quit. I wanted to prove it to myself that if I'm doing something new, like, why don't I just make it work, right? And then, the turning point for me was going through a few different jobs and a few different bosses, and learning a lot more about sales and how sales works from different managers. When you make that first big commission or that first big month, that's when you're like, okay, wait, this kind of clicks. It makes sense. It works. If people are doing it around me, why can't I? And then eventually you do, right? You make a sale, you make a big commission month. And then you realize that your success, it came from consistency and putting in the reps, not just talent or, luck and these sorts of things. It was because you were there, you made the calls, you took the calls, and you closed the deals, right? And you start to build confidence over time. The more reps you put in with anything, for example, if it's the gym, right, you eventually you gain muscle. It's very simple. With sales, the more reps you put in, the more confidence you gain, and the less you feel pressured to, on these calls to close deals, because eventually, even if you don't close this one, you don't close the next, maybe the third, maybe the fourth, these will close eventually. You have a bit more trust in yourself that you've done it once, you can do it again, that sort of thing. And for myself, I mean, look, sales has given me a lot, to be honest. It's given me confidence. I'm way more confident. I think I'm a better communicator. I'm more disciplined. I have a very different mindset now as well. I find that I'm a bit more relentless, and if I'm thrown a challenge, I just do it. I deal with it. Obviously, the financial benefits from it, making commission from anywhere in the world is amazing. Meeting lots of ambitious people, and my network has grown with a lot of like-minded people that work remotely across Europe, the US, and all these places really, where if I go to a city and I can go link up with someone, get an Airbnb with them, and work remotely, and it's just fun. You learn so many new things from someone that you live with, different perspectives, and I think it's the best part of really working remotely. And I think I learned how to solve my own problems without making excuses. That was a big key thing, because you can make excuses in sales all day, and I hear it all the time from people saying the leads are bad, this lead could have done this closer didn't close this, and I find myself saying the same thing sometimes, right? Because sometimes you don't want to put the blame on yourself and you want to put it on someone else, but in reality, it's always a learning lesson for yourself on what you could have done better, instead of blaming someone else into what could have they done better, right? Like why are we always shifting the blame when you can use it as a learning experience? So I think the biggest lessons that anyone could take away is that sales is a skill that anyone can learn, okay? Regardless if you're, I think a big misconception is you have to be extroverted for sales. It's actually the opposite. Introverts typically perform better in sales because they're better listeners. And when you're on a closing call and if you're the only one talking on that call, the prospect won't even feel heard, right? I'm not sure if this is something that's well known, but if you're on a conversation with someone and you're the one only asking questions and the other person's talking the whole time, they will feel like they got to know you so much better when you didn't even say anything. It's a weird phenomenon, but it's true, right? So look, sales is for everyone. If you are interested in it, if you want to do it, I think definitely give it a go. Rejection is part of the game. When you're applying for roles for the first time, you're going to get rejected. That's your first point of rejection. When you get on your offer, you start calling leads, you're going to get rejected. That's a consistent theme of sales is rejection. Dealing with that is the biggest thing, and once you learn it and you master it, it becomes a lot easier. I think another one is consistency always beats your motivation, right? We always see people in different teams where, they'll go through motivation slumps and they'll, go have lots of big ups and downs, and we'll see them, watching YouTube, watching these David Goggins videos or whatever, and they'll come out fresh, they'll work really hard, heaps of dials, and then the following week it'll be nothing, they'll go through a bit more of a slump, they'll feel a lot more down, and just being consistent and knowing how much output you can do in a day realistically, and knowing that, it is a lot better, I feel. Focusing on helping people rather than just closing them. Seeing people as dollar signs is never going to be helpful, right? You're always going to see through the prospect rather than seeing them for who they are. Okay, that's a key thing. Make sure you're always thinking about helping the person. How are you actually going to help them? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to buy if you hard sell them. They're not going to buy if you pressure them into buying. And even if they do, they're not going to have a good success rate. They might churn. They might have a clawback or a chargeback, and you might have to give that commission back, right? So helping them and making them realize why what you're selling will help them in the long term. And if they put the time in and the effort in, maybe they can make it work, right? I think the biggest thing as well is investing in yourself. And that doesn't just mean with money, for example. Personally, I never got, a mentorship or anything like that. I more just job hopped and found through different sales managers a lot of different techniques and different sales methods to use. And then from that, I also learned a bunch of different books to read, right? A few that I quote a lot is Never Split the Difference by one of my sales managers. Another one told me The Challenge a Sale. Another one, obviously, the classics, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these types of books. I've read all of them, right? These books help you a lot, even if it's not, you're not going to memorize the whole book. No one really does ever. It's more just about how you can use those little skills in your day-to-day and just take one thing from each book. Really, at the end of the day, the lesson is always one sentence from these 300-400 page books. I think that's the cool thing, just learning the key lesson and you'll be sweet. And then for myself, where I'm going from here, look, I'm still learning every single day, right? I recently, one of my offers that I was on blew up. The lead flow was terrible and we had to, put a pause on it. I then looked for a new offer, currently just setting. So I've taken a bit of a step back from closing and managing. It's been really refreshing, to be honest. Being, a setter again and smashing the phones, the dials, and just making calls, really following a script again. And it's like I'm building my blocks back up, which is amazing. Obviously I have really big goals myself to achieve, and I won't really drop them here. They're more just personal, right, goals. And yeah, I guess like the reason behind starting this YouTube channel a couple of months ago was more just to note down the lessons that I learned. And everything I'm sharing is from my own experience and things that I've gone through that I found a solution to, and I put it in a video so that I can also look back on it myself and be like, okay, cool. This is what I did. Just do it again. Like, it works, right? And I mean, from now on, it's essentially just going to be the same thing. It's always going to be these videos that if I learn something, a different thing, I'll make a video on it, maybe a short or a long form, I don't know. But yeah, I invite, whoever wants to watch these videos and maybe get some value from it, come along for the ride, and we'll see where we end up. Thanks for watching.